Pilot Award 101 session. I'm going to pull up our slides just to briefly go over the agenda for today. And thank you, Vivian, for clicking record. Okay, so here's what we have for today. We're going to kick us off with some introductions, and then I'll provide a brief overview on our DC CFAR as well as our traditional pilot awards program, and make sure to leave enough time for some discussion and questions and such from the group, because we'll want to hear from all of you. So, and we'll be closing right at 4. So with that, I'm going to actually, before we get started with our slides, just do some quick introduction. So for that, I'll pull down my slides again. And since we have a smaller group for now, maybe I'll just call on everyone just to hear a little bit more about what everyone's working on. But I'll start us off. So first of all, hi, my name is Lorena Segura. I'm the DC CFAR Senior Research Program Manager, and I work with our developmental core to support these different activities, including the Pilot Awards program. So I'll be your point of contact for any questions as you're learning more about the program and going through the application process. And so with that, I'll call on Mark just to quickly introduce himself.
I'm Mark Burke. I'm from Howard University from the Department of Physiology, and I'm one of the co-directors of the Developmental Core.
Thank you, Mark. I'll call on Kim next.
Hi, I'm Kim Blankenship. I'm a professor of sociology at American University and one of the co-directors of the Developmental Core as well.
Great, thank you, Kim. And just I'll go in order as I see you all. So I'll call Brandy next.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brandy Robinson, and I am the Administrative Director of the DC Center for AIDS Research, and I help our administrative directors run the CFAR. Good to see everyone today.
Thank you, Brandy. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna call on Wendy next.
Hi, Wendy Davis. I work with the Developmental Core to provide support to people developing pilot awards. So very happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy. I know George is on the line. George Kerr, he's our Community Partnership Council Chair and our Community Coordinator. I think he's going to stay off camera for a bit and we'll be able to discuss in the chat. But thank you, George, for joining us, and call on Vivian before opening up the room.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Vivian Kirkham, and I'm the core manager for the Developmental Core. So I help Lorena with the Pilot Awards program. I also help with any core service requests for the Clinical and Population Sciences Core and the Basic Sciences Core. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Vivian. Okay, so I see in the chat from Deborah Costco. Thank you for introducing yourself. No worries. I hope you feel better, and thank you so much for joining us. We are also recording this session, so we'll make sure to share that if you have to jump out a bit early as well. So next I'll call on Ty.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tai Izumi. I'm a new assistant professor in the biology department at American University, and the new investigator in DC CFAR. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oops. I think someone jumped off. All right. So with that, I'll pull back the slides, and hopefully as other people join in, make sure to ask them to introduce themselves during the discussion portion. Okay. All right. Can everyone see my slides okay? Okay. All right. So with that, I'll just provide again a brief overview on the DC CFAR, and I really want to make sure to keep this conversational. So please feel free to interrupt me with any questions, whether that's in the chat or just raise your hand and unmute. And also for our DC CFAR folks that are on the line, please feel free to also chime in with any additional input as I'm going through these slides. Okay, so our DC CFAR is part of this network of NIH-funded centers for AIDS research across the US. You'll see here in this map the network of 19 other CFARs. And these have an overall mission of supporting multidisciplinary research in HIV. Okay. All right. And so the mission of our CFAR, of the DC CFAR, is really to intensify that multi-institutional effort that promotes and support research to contribute to ending the HIV epidemic in Washington, DC and beyond. And we do that so in partnership with government and community members. And so here we have some of our aims. I won't go through each and one of them, but I do want to make sure to highlight two specific ones that we'll be covering throughout the different activities that we're presenting today, including stimulating and supporting innovative and consequential HIV research in different fields, as well as promoting interdisciplinary approaches to addressing NIH high priority scientific HIV-focused areas. And secondly, also driving that development of recruiting both early stage investigators, new investigators, and underrepresented and different in the HIV field. Excuse me. Okay, so the DC CFAR is multi-institutional. You'll see here our partners at the top are academic partners, so GW, George Washington University, Georgetown, Howard, and American University. And then we'll have here our medical clinicians partners, so the VA, Children's National, DC Health, and our community partners, Women Walker, and most recently Us Helping Us. So below, you'll also see what we call our summary measures, or just brief report out throughout this grant period of different pilot awards that we've granted and awards received and members and such. So the DC CFAR works on numerous activities, including, again, supporting research in the different high priority fields, provide core services, scientific core services, and I'll go over those in a bit. We also track all of these services and grants and publications and promote community engaging activities and research, seminars, symposium, and then we also distribute all of this information through our different networks, whether that's from our website, social media, our weekly newsletter, and such. But today we'll be talking about our pilot awards program. So right, next up, just to share a little bit more of how the DC CFAR is organized, we have here at the top our executive committee, which provides that oversight. And then we also have different advisory committees, including our Community Partnership Council, which I'll present in a bit. Here we have our different cores, including our scientific cores that provide different services. And below here in purple, we have our scientific working groups, or our SWIGs, and our scientific interest groups, or our SIGs, which are forums that encourage these different collaborations between investigators and community partners in these different areas, and I'll also discuss these a bit more. So this is our little Facebook page with all the pictures of our executive committee members and core directors and such. But today we'll be talking about the developmental core specifically, given that this is the core that aims to really promote an innovative research and also lead that mentoring program and really provide that educational and networking support to really address all of these different aims. So you met a few of our co-directors, but here we have all of our other co-directors and directors, including Dr. Michael Bakrinsky, who leads the core, as well as Provost Wuto and Dr. Natala Rachmanina. And with that, we have here a list of our different research award programs that we've hosted in previous cycles. But today we'll be focusing on the traditional pilot awards program. But just to note, we've hosted the Transitioning Investigator Program, a Academic Community Partnership Council, or excuse me, Academic Community Partnership Award. We've also hosted rapid response programs regarding MPOX and COVID, and we have an ongoing microgrant program as well. Okay, so here's a list of the different services that our scientific cores provide, but we do encourage investigators or potential applicants to please reach out. All of these cores are happy to support and provide different services within that application process and the project itself. So, and additional details about these are available on our website. So just want to make sure to reference, what the basic sciences core is working on, the clinical population sciences and social and behavioral sciences cores provide to our different investigators. And here we have a list of our different scientific working group and interest groups. They have numerous activities. And so if there's a specific area that might be in alignment with your interest, to please reach out. There's a contact information, and you will then be added to their list, and you'll be more in the know of the different activities that these groups work on as well. Okay, so here we have a bit more of information about our Community Partnership Council. And as mentioned, George is the chair and community coordinator for the CFAR. But just to mention, our Community Partnership Council, formerly known as our CAB, is really comprised by members and leaders of the DC HIV community. And their active participation is considered one of the hallmarks of the DC CFAR. They're a key participant in the Pilot Awards program, given that they review applications, they participate in consultation calls, and they interact with our investigators and members in different ways. So we want to make sure to acknowledge their different roles and participation across our numerous activities. So with that, I think, yes, that's my brief overview on the DC CFAR. Is a lot of information. So I just want to take a pause here to see if there are any questions from the group. Just noting again, these slides will be available to you. So you can make sure to reference those as well. But I'm just pausing here to see if there are any questions. Okay, all right. And if I'm missing anything, I'm not seeing the chat really quick. Oh, thank you, Vivian, for sending that. Okay. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about our Traditional Pilot Awards program. So to go over our pilot program, specifically this upcoming cycle, the spring 2024, just to mention that the goal of this program is to really provide pilot funds and on a competitive basis for a one-year period to HIV investigators and to assist them in their development of their NIH-funded research careers. The scope for these applications should include the NIH-defined high-priority HIV research areas. We do, this cycle, have a special consideration for applications in the different focus areas of our scientific working groups and interest groups that I highlighted previously. Awards requests may be up to $75K, and below here you'll see the different, the timeline for the different activities and procedures, starting with the release for our request for applications, which will be tomorrow. So we'll be sending that out soon. We also have our pre-submission form date of February 21st at 5 p.m. and pre-submissions are required for those who intend to submit a full application. Next up, we'll have other activities prior to the full application deadline, which is April 22nd. And lastly, project's anticipated start date is June 1st. So I'll move us to the next slide.
Hold on 1 second. Can you go back one?
Yep.
I do want to give everybody the heads up that full application deadline on April 22nd. If you're outside of GW, so American, Howard, Georgetown, our other partner institutions, remember you have to submit this through your university. So if you have to go through, if your university says any external funding, you must get the application in 2 weeks in advance, then you can do 2 weeks in advance of April 22nd. So just be mindful of that it has to have your, the cover page, just like an NIH grant has to have the signature of your signing officer.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, that is a requirement for investigators that are not at a GW, not at GW, to please route your applications through your Office of Sponsored Research or any other parallel offices before submitting your full application. So definitely take that into account. So to make sure to submit that in time to your different offices, so that way it's routed in time for that full application deadline. So really important. Thank you. I'll pause there just to see if anyone else from the developmental core wants to say something. Okay. All right. So with that, just wanted to make sure to acknowledge our most recent award recipients, and additional details about their projects will be sent out soon. But we just want to make sure to reference them and our other recent pilot award recipients. If you're interested in looking at what our other applicants have been working on, this information is available on our website, including an abstracts on their different projects. So going back to the application process, this is a screenshot of our request for application of our RFA. We encourage all potential applicants to really read through this document, which includes all of the different instructions and details regarding the application process. And again, this will be sent out tomorrow. In terms of eligibility, these funds are provided to early stage and new or transitioning investigators into the HIV field. This is open to faculty investigators at our 9 participating institutions. Resubmissions are allowed and welcome. And lastly, we want to make sure to note that this opportunity is open for DC CFAR full members. If you're not a member, we do have a form here that you can quickly fill out, and we'll be happy to help with that membership process. Okay, all right. So next up.
I'm so sorry, can I ask you a question about the LD submissions right now or later?
Yeah, go ahead.
So for the submission application, do we also need to submit the response to the each reviewer's comment in the initial application, or the submission application should be also exactly same format as the initial application?
Okay, so we do have a specific section, so that's why I'm trying to reference that really quick. For resubmissions, we do ask for resubmissions to include a 1-page summary to really synthesize those major revisions that were done following that feedback received from the reviewers, and then within the actual application to really identify those scientific changes. And that can be, using brackets or highlighting text. So that would be all within the application itself. But yes, we do have, additional information on our RFA around resubmissions, but hopefully that's helpful. And okay.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. All right.
Lorena, let me just explain a little bit about new transitioning investigators, because there may be some confusion. So these pilot awards are open to investigators who were recently appointed to the institution. And by recently, we mean a year, right? Within a year.
I think it's 2 years, Michael, but
even 2
recent.
years. Okay. And by transitioning investigators, we mean investigators who have been founded by NIH but for projects other than HIV. So it's not that any investigator who is not an early stage investigator can actually apply if this investigator didn't work on HIV. We only open this to such investigators who have been funded by NIH before. So that's important to know.
Yes, so funded by NIH, but not in HIV.
But
Correct.
not in HIV, correct?
Yes.
Right. And doesn't it have to be an R1 level funding, or can it be any kind of funding?
Exactly. It would be an R level funding. Yeah.
But R1 level?
R01
or
level
like
funding, excuse
okay.
me. Correct. Okay. Sorry, just making
But
sure.
with that, I would strongly recommend, we've had quite a few faculty who have transitioned. They've had R levels for other subjects. They've transitioned into HIV and have been quite successful with that now. Getting multiple grants now in HIV, but applying what they have from their other fields to the HIV field. So really, if you have colleagues that you say, well, you know, their research could be their research techniques or their research ideas could be applied to HIV, encourage them, please.
Definitely. Thank you, everyone. All right, just making sure I'm not missing anything else. Okay, I'll move us along. To the application instructions, and again, encourage everyone to please review the RFA, but just wanted to touch on different sections of the application process for this program. So pre-submission forms are required, and so you'll find this form in our website, and it will be linked out from our RFA. Following this pre-submission form, we do invite applicants to participate in our consultation calls, and this is led by our DC CFAR Developmental Core to really provide initial feedback to applicants. And we also have our Community Partnership Council members participating in these calls, but we do encourage investigators to really continue to work upon their application throughout this process. Again, we do have other activities, including our specific aims review session, which is more of a one-on-one session, and we invite investigators who are interested in utilizing the service to really work on that specific games page, which is really central to your application, and additional details about that will become available to applicants throughout the process. Mentorship is key for this program. So if you do not have a mentor identified yet, Developmental Core is more than happy to help identify one for you. If you do have a mentor that you'll be working on throughout this application process, we encourage you all to really work closely with your mentors throughout this process. And lastly, as mentioned, we do have a number of core services and core service providers that are happy to connect with you and consult with you throughout the application process. Regarding the full application, we do have a form for that, including the different required components, and you'll be able to download it from our website or the RFA. And as Mark mentioned at the top, investigators not at GW must route their grant applications. So please take that into consideration in the timeline of making sure it's submitted in time. Okay. Oh, and this is a screenshot of the cover page for the application form. So the review for these applications, we utilize the NIH criteria and evaluate community impact. And we do have a scientific review committee, which is comprised of 3 scientific experts and a CPC member to really review these. And the summary statement will be provided back to all applicants. And lastly, in the RFA, you'll find additional details should your application be successful regarding different guidelines and compliance issues to make sure to keep into consideration. So I want to make sure to include that for reference. And then to close up, I'm going to leave us with a few tips that we've shared previously from the developmental core and that I've sprinkled in throughout the presentation. But again, please read through RFA, includes lots of key details and instructions, but please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, and that will again be released tomorrow. We encourage all applicants to really start preparing early and identify whether any services or any key collaborators that you would like to work with on your applications, and we'll be happy to facilitate those connections. Again, mentorship is key. Your specific aims page is central to your application. So we hope applicants will work through these pieces. Resubmissions are welcome. And as mentioned at the top, we do have additional instructions around that. And lastly, community engagement is essential. And we do have a number of community and academic partnership resources within our website, if that would be helpful while you're developing your application. And aside from that, we do have other resources in our Dropbox, which includes different guidelines and examples and such. And folks are welcome to look through that, and other available resources may be included. And I believe those are my last slide. Yes. So I want to turn down the slides just to make sure to open it up for discussions. And I think we have good time to talk a little bit more, but before I do, just wanted to share our contact information. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions or especially any specific questions about your potential application. And we do have a short survey as we continue to improve our different seminars and activities. So we'll be sharing that in the we'll be sending that out as well, because we'll be grateful for any feedback you may have. So with that, I'll stop sharing. And I think we have a few new people joining in. So maybe if you can, to please just introduce yourself. Maybe I'll call on our co-directors who have joined us, Michael and Atala, to introduce yourself, if possible.
Sure. I'm Michael Bukrinsky. I'm the director of the Developmental Core, and you can ask me by email or any other way any questions you have about our services.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natalia Rachmanina. I'm based at Children's National. Miranda, nice to see you. I've been following your great success. Miranda used to work on our team. Welcome to the call. Very nice to see your recent growth. Fantastic. And welcome, everybody. Also available by email.
Thank you, Natalia. Well, actually, with that, Miranda, do you just want to introduce yourself? We opened it up earlier for introductions, so you're welcome to, if you have any questions as well, just quickly.
Sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Miranda Ward. Thank you for the shout out. Yes, I did used to work at Children's National, and now I'm working at GW in the School of Medicine and Health Sciences as an assistant professor in the Department of Clinical Research and Leadership, but I still partner with lots of pediatricians at Children's. And I don't know if you already went over this, Lorena, but did you talk about the reviewer, like basically anyone who submits an application, or do they actually receive reviewer comments, even if they don't actually kind of advance to the next stage? And then also the second part of that question is, what would be some of the reasons why an applicant would not be funded?
Yeah, thank you. Those are great questions. So the first, yes, we do provide back the summary statement of each of the reviewers. So yes, you will receive that after the review process, so closer to that start date. And we do ask applicants who have been recommended for funding to respond to those reviewers' comments as well. And then applicants who weren't successful, then we'll have those comments and then respond to those should they want to resubmit, and there's a whole process for that. And then your second question was around why, say that again, sorry.
what would be some reasons why an application wasn't funded? I mean, I know it's very competitive, so that probably might be part of it, just limited funding and slots, but are there any
Right.
glaring reasons why an application wouldn't move forward?
That's a great question. I'll check if our developmental core co-directors would like to chime in on that first.
Sorry, I didn't. Can you speak a little louder? I didn't hear you. What was the question?
So the question was any specific reasons or like any reasons why an application wouldn't be successful? I can
Why,
say
any specific reason why application was not successful, or
right.
how to make it successful? We actually rely on peer reviews, basically, in our evaluation of applications. And that's the primary criteria for funding it or not funding. And besides peer review, we also consider how application addresses the goals of CFAR and community interests and all the other criteria, which are kind of secondary to peer review scientific evaluation. So that's basically, I guess, the answer, that if application was not funded, that's because it didn't get priority score from reviewers that would put it in the top whatever. We usually fund out of, let's say, 5, 6, I mean, our average number of applications being submitted is about 5, 6, I believe, right, Lorena? And I think that we usually fund 3, maximum 4 applications out of that. So that's the success rate is pretty high, I would say, compared to NIH applications, for example.
Yeah. And if I can quickly add to that really quick.
Yeah.
So that would also depend on, the availability of funding. So that really varies a lot within cycles. One other thing I want to make sure to mention, I know George added here on the chat, how important it is to have a strong community statement, and that's will be part of the application process, and our community partnership council member would review and provide those scores as well. Something that our reviewers also look at is just how this proposal will develop then into other potential NIH applications. That's a big goal for this program, right? And then how feasible it is to complete into that 1-year funding period. That's something we also want to make sure to, or that previous reviewers have really looked at. So I just wanted to make sure to add those 2 pieces.
Yeah, so can I add a couple things to this? So so kind of answering the second part of your question, Miranda. So as far as how many get funded, kind of piggybacking on what Michael said, it really depends on the score. I mean, if we have only 1 out of 7 applications that have a fundable score, 1 gets funded. If we have 5 that are fundable, that are really top-notch fundable, but we only have money for 3, then then there's that decision process. So that's where, so it really depends on the scores and what funding is available. The second part of your question was about the what kind of is almost that kiss of death. What would cause a grant not to get funded? A lot of times what we see is the approach, something to do with the approach. Maybe if I've seen in social behavioral sciences, maybe the methodology about how to analyze the data or how to approach that are deemed by 1 or 2 reviewers as not feasible or not appropriate. That's kind of a kiss of death, saying, okay, it's not, if a reviewer comes back and says this approach isn't feasible. And a big thing that Lorena just said about this is a 1-year project. If you're collecting patient samples and you can't get very many patient samples, that would, that say you need samples from 30 patients, but in reality, the feasibility of collecting those specific 30 samples will not be possible, you might get 5. Well, then there goes your statistical power. So then that makes it not feasible in 1 year. So those are the things that you want to kind of look at and make sure that you're clear with your approach and pass it through some colleagues to make sure that did I explain this well enough? Did I show that it's feasible? And then the other part, which Lorena said is, and Michael said, we want to see how this can lead into NIH funding. So yeah, remember this is a pilot award, so we don't want a 5-year project squished into 1 year. You're not going to have the funding for that. You're not going to have the time for that. But how would this lay the foundation for a larger grant? So if the whole project, I have one specific question, whole project can be done in 1 year, and then that's the terminal region of it, it's not likely to get funded. So the other thing is with our reviewers, we do send this out for external review as well. So a lot of our reviewers, and this goes back to the question that you had about the feedback that you get. So yes, you do get your feedback. And the really nice thing about this is a lot of the reviewers that we tap on the shoulder are either current or former review panels members for the several different HIV panels that there are. So you're getting the kind of like that insight from what the panel would actually say to you.
That's super helpful. Thank you. So I have a follow-up question to that. Since the typical NIH award might be like a 5-year award, you would have 3 aims. In this 1-year pilot award, is the expectation to still have multiple aims?
We generally see, it depends on the project. We generally see a couple of aims. Sometimes it goes up to 3 aims, but then you do have to show that how each of those 3 aims would be feasible, or at least to be addressed in that 1 year. But 2 aims it would be appropriate as well. I very rarely, maybe the other director or Lauren could comment. I very rarely see a single aim project. Usually
Right.
2.
2 to 3. Okay.
And it can be feasibility aim, right, Mark and Miranda? So you can do the first 2 and don't make them too big, because everybody understands you are building something for the next step. So I think the biggest element in your application would be both to Ty and Miranda is to really show your vision beyond that 1 year. So you're defining yourself. What is that first step I need to do? But I have 2, 3 unanswered questions that I'm going to move on, and I'm going to use this data. And I'm going to use this data to address those.
Lorena, can I add a little also? Sorry, this might be a lot, Miranda, but it's such a great question. I think it's also really good to show why you are the person that's the right person to do this research. And as Natella's saying, why you are the right person to be starting on this trajectory of research. And also, what is the gap? If you're setting something that other people have already figured out, that's not so compelling. So what is the gap? And again, as much as you can do this, why are you the best person to fill that gap? And with the data that you might have available to you. So you're, thinking about why is this significant? Why is this important? Why should people care about this? And what are you bringing to it that's different than other folks may have brought to it before? Just a little more. This was a lot of information we gave you, but it was such a good question.
No, this is incredibly helpful. Thank you.
And a little bit more insight. Another part of your question, you asked a loaded question. The other part of your question is what happens if you don't get funding? Well, we do have a Wendy started this one, and Vivian and her helped develop a tracking system. So we have a no investigator left behind. So if you don't get funding your first time, which again, that's perfectly normal, right? We don't want anyone to walk away discouraged and say, "Oh, I give up," because you go through the consultation calls. The consultation calls are a friendly way of saying, "Okay, think about this or consider this aspect." And at the end of that consultation call, at the beginning of this whole process, you're going to get feedback, and generally we're excited about projects, right? Because you're coming with something new. So we don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose those ideas. We don't want to lose that enthusiasm. We want to see you get funded later on, because the pilot award is not the end of it. So we do have a whole tracking system where we know when you applied, who your mentor was at the time, what level of academics you are, and we follow up. And we have specific people, depending on how long it's been, to follow up with you within that first year, follow up with your mentor. And then after all of this, even after you get your, hopefully get your pilot award, we still want to follow up with how you're doing with your publications, how are you doing with applying for NIH grants, what else can we do as a developmental core. So there's a whole, so we latch on, and we want to see you succeed, because the other part of this is once you get your award and you're up and running, we don't want to lose you out of the system. So we also talk to the mentor about what do they need to do to make tenure, and make sure that we retain those really great faculty that we've helped develop. So that's kind of the long-term aspect of our developmental core.
Yeah, please let me in this conversation. So, especially Marx, you said the decision for the funding is based on the scores from the reviewers, and if you have any general successful scores from each reviewers, so it would be great to hear that. So I would like to estimate that my current my initial application was near from the funding, or what still very far away from the funding scores.
So the thing we want to take about from the reviewer is what was their major criticism, right? So if you can address that, and again, we've had people who were able to readily address those the critiques, and make sure that they can show that what they are trying to do is clearly written out and feasible. We've had people who reapplied, got their grants. We've had people who said, well, you know what, these are really good reviews. I'm going to actually flip this over to an R03, and they've gotten their R03 right out. Actually, we have a one of my colleagues here at Howard did that. She applied for the pilot award, got her feedback, and she was actually new to HIV as well, and took that instead of reapplying for a pilot award. He got her RL3 on her first try. So really look at exactly what that kiss of death was, or the major issue, and really make sure you address that. And again, work with your mentor to help identify that, because what you think might have been the kiss of death might not be what your mentor thought. And if and you can have somebody from the developmental core go through it as well. Say, okay, this is what I think you need to do to improve. So there's feedback that you can get at multiple levels.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, so it means that the number of the scores provided from each reviewers are not a good reference to evaluate.
It's a great reference for what you're going to get at study section, because again, I would say most of the individuals that we have, and I think pretty much all of them, to tell you the truth, are either previous or have sat on ad hoc or actually standing members of I think there's 3 HIV study sections. So they know what they know what the study sections are looking at for. The other thing is I've seen, and we've seen this quite a bit, where 2 of the reviewers come back with very good scores, 2 or 3, which is well within the fundable range. But then you get that reviewer number 3, who says they didn't like it, and they give you a 7, which bumps you out of that fundable range. But that reviewer 7 might have some serious issues with the approach that says this is not going to work. So that's why typically you would see that not getting funded, to say, okay, bounce it back. Let's bounce it back to the investigator. Hopefully we can work with them to address that major issue that this one reviewer had, even though the other 2 might have been okay with it. We want to see that remedied and addressed, so that you can collect the data and go for the R level grant.
Sure, thank you.
And it's kind of like what you see at study section. I mean, you see a study section, these very disparate numbers. You can get somebody saying a 2. I've seen a study section where the range was from 2 to 7, which was crazy. But yeah, it happens.
Okay, great. Well, I hope those were helpful. I just want to make sure if there are any other questions from the group. I see a few other participants. I know, Deborah, you mentioned you weren't feeling well, but if you do have any questions, you're welcome to add them to the chat box and we can read those out and respond that to you. I see Justin and Raven, but if you have any questions, I think you just join in too, so it's all right. All right, well, hearing none, just wanted to check one last time with our developmental core directors to see if there are any last remarks you wanted to share before we close out the session today.
Just look forward to seeing lots of pilot awards coming in.
Yes, definitely. Okay, all right. Well, with that, thank you all so much for joining. Again, this session was recorded and we'll be sending out the slides and we'll be sending out more information around this soon. But thank you all and have a great rest of your day. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.